Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. My name is JP, and today I'm joined by my co-host Tim Diacono, and these are your 5 headlines for today. Police close investigation into Keith Schembry's chats with Jorgen Fenech. Jorgen Fenech's lawyers charged for attempting to bribe journalists. Maltese MEP launches European Medicinal Cannabis Alliance. 1 year later, memory of Chantal Ketkuti lives on as loved ones demand justice. Sliema Wanderers players speak out after months of not getting paid. And make sure to stick around to the very end, where we have a Lovin Malta exclusive interview with David Xuereb, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Tim?
Yes, so yesterday was quite a good day for Keith Schembry, as he was interrogated by police, after which his lawyer confirmed or claimed that investigations into his chats with Jorgen Fenech had officially been closed. Now, this is an investigation that the police have launched into Jorgen Fenech's phone. Jorgen Fenech, obviously the main suspect in the assassination of Daphne Caruana Galizia, and they've been interrogating a number of people in connection with certain chats that they found inside this phone. So yesterday it was Keith Schembry's turn. He spent a while inside the financial crimes department, and afterwards he emerged seemingly victorious, smile on his face. But then the police confirmed later that the investigation is ongoing. We don't yet know whether this means the investigation to Jorgen Fenech's chats with Keith Schembry specifically, or into the chats in general, but the investigation is still underway. Obviously, I doubt how much evidence is going to be found inside WhatsApp chats.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a good day for Keith Schembry, at least, who appeared outside the Financial Crimes Unit in front of cameras for the first time in a while, and seemed pretty happy with himself then. But obviously, many more investigations are ongoing, and this is definitely not the end and the last we'll hear of him. Moving on to our second story, and concerning as well Jorgen Fenech, this time with his lawyers, who have been charged for attempting to bribe a journalist. Lawyers Charles Mechea and Gianluca Caruana have been charged in court over an attempted bribe of Times of Malta journalist Ivan Martin. Times of Malta had revealed that Martin, as well as editor-in-chief Herman Grech and news editor Diana, have all been summoned as witnesses for Monday's case. Now, this all, as you probably cast your mind back to last November, was when Martin, Times of Malta journalist, had flagged how Caruana offered him a set of €500 notes in return for favourable coverage towards his client, Jorgen Fenech. Mechea, Fenech's other lawyer, was also present in the meeting, and essentially they were trying to employ Martin to give them favourable coverage in the media for Fenech, and when he declined, they said later that they only realised that Martin had been employed full-time with Times of Malta since 2003 after he had declined the offer, which obviously is a bit suspect, a bit hard to believe, given that he's one of Malta's most prominent investigative journalists out there. But obviously, the latest update being that they are actually being charged, and this will go to court.
Yes, absolutely. It took some time, but it's good to see that the police are taking the words of a journalist seriously. Interestingly, it's while Ivan Martin rejected the bribe, and good for him, the question still remains whether they managed to successfully bribe other people in return for favourable coverage. Moving on, MEP Alex Ajur Saliba has launched a pretty innovative drive in the European Union in favour of the harmonisation of medical cannabis procedures. So he's set up, along with himself and 3 other MEPs, the European Medicinal Cannabis Alliance. Now, his point is that medical cannabis is a very useful drug, a pain relievant, but at the moment, the problem is that different member states have different laws, different regulations, and this is causing prices to inflate, and there's also issues with importation. So he said we need a harmonized European approach to this medicine, which is good, really good. I mean, it's about time that Europe starts waking up to this. I don't know why it hasn't been recognized as a medicine more in a more widespread manner, but at least good to see a Maltese MEP using his clout to implement change.
Absolutely, and this came obviously yesterday when it was World Cancer Day. I think it's a significant day to really bring up this topic in the European Parliament. Just to give some background, in terms of Malta, Malta had legalized medicinal cannabis in 2018. It had a rocky start, with many fearing that they might have their driver's license revoked as part of using the plant. But 3 years on, the medicine has become much more normalized and accepted on the island, with more and more patients being prescribed it as doctors become more aware of the beneficial uses of medicinal cannabis. Moving on to our fourth story, 1 year later, memory of Chantal Ketkuti lives on as loved ones demand justice. Now, if you cast your memory back to this time last year, it was quite a shocking news report, shocking incident when Chantal Ketkuti, a mother of two, was discovered with a knife lodged in her head at outside a Zabbar band club. Unfortunately, she did die a few days later, and it was revealed that allegedly her ex-partner, Justin Borge, had stabbed her and brutally murdered her, stabbed her several times and lodged a knife in her head. Borge since then was released on bail against a 25,000 euro deposit and a 20,000 personal guarantee. He's currently subject to a curfew from 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. and has to sign a daily bail book. But the tragedy of it all, obviously, is the fact that Chantal Ketkuti, this could have been avoided because in 2013, Ketkuti had instituted a domestic violence court case against Borge, but this was dropped after she chose not to testify. Now, 1 year on since the tragic incident, her loved ones have taken to Facebook saying that they demand justice, that it's up to us to demand justice for Chantal Ketkuti and other people who are victims of these domestic violence cases. And to this day, justice has yet to be served, but hopefully one day we'll get there.
Yes, unfortunately, the wheels of justice turn very slowly in Malta, and the victims' relatives and loved ones are left, wondering what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it's a good thing that they're imposing some pressure on the courts to keep moving. On to our final story of the day. Sliema Wanderers may be fourth in the Maltese Premier League, but the players are facing some very serious financial difficulties. So after not being paid their salaries for months, Sliema Wanderers' team, along with their coach, actually held a press conference inside the pitch saying that they haven't been paid for months, that some of them are really struggling financially, especially the foreign-based players. They're struggling to pay their rent, they're struggling to even buy food and to even transport themselves to the pitch, and that the other players have had to help out. Now, it's quite unbelievable. Sliema Wanderers is one of the most successful clubs in Maltese history, although their fortunes have dipped in recent years, but they still remain fourth in the league. And the fact that when you see these stories internationally about players like Lionel Messi, about how much is getting paid, and then you see that one of the top teams in Malta is struggling this badly, that the players aren't even getting paid. It's really sad. It's really sad.
It's disheartening. I mean, especially when this isn't the only story to come out of Sliema Wanderers this week. There was a botched deal involving Malta national defender Kurt Shaw, who had the opportunity to go to top-tier Austrian team Wolfsberger, who will be playing Tottenham Hotspurs in a couple of weeks' time. But his deal to go there didn't go through because of mismanagement by Sliema Wanderers' part. So it's disheartening to see a lot of these players, foreign players, come here with a passion to play football, but also to make money and send it back home to their families, and see them struggling day by day. Especially in a pandemic, it's not the kind of good sports news you want to hear, and kind of diminishes the growth of football in Malta and its reputation, obviously. That brings us to the end of our news segment of Lovin Daily. Make sure to stick around for our Lovin Malta exclusive interview with David Xuereb, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. But before that, here's a quick recap of our first season of Lovin Malta's original show, Meet the Boss.
Make sure you're not the smartest person in the room.
Try to be a very good number two. That is the worst advice I ever received in my life.
If possible, make sure you're the stupidest person in the room. If you're not, you're in the wrong room.
I don't really believe in difficult decisions.
You always have that gut feeling in everything you do.
From that, I decided I have to be the number one in my own journey. No one else is number one.
A decision is a decision.
A lot of people place too much emphasis on luck.
Say more yeses, take more risks.
I let my gut be my compass, so to speak.
To invest more in relationships.
I think the biggest myth of business is that things are easy.
You have to fight back, you have to be aggressive in the same way.
Nothing is the end of the world except the end of the world.
You're the strengthened for it for your next challenge.
Dominant in the same way, and level yourself to the same attitude.
Everybody else, I wanted to be some big sports hero, but that didn't happen, unfortunately.
You have to own up to that decision and you just execute.
Luck will always feature in everything in life.
Most likely, more is not the answer.
I wanted to become Malta's biggest businessman.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Which is bullshit, basically.
Apparti li segwi l-ħolm tiegħek, però flus ta' kollox hija li temmen fik innifsek.
Welcome back to Lovin Daily. With me now is David Xuereb, President of the Chamber of Commerce. Hi, David.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
Not bad.
Good. Thanks for inviting me.
No, my pleasure. So, the Chamber of Commerce recently conducted a survey about with proposals to improve public procurement in Malta. Why do this now in the midst of a pandemic? Why did you see this as such a pressing issue?
Okay. So about a year ago, Tim, when the country was going through quite a significant turmoil with respect to good governance, Chamber of Commerce thought it fit that rather than criticize government on things that were not working or things that certainly needed to improve in anything to do with the judiciary, the police, procurement and so many other areas, that was presented, that was delivered about a year ago in January, and is today considered to be a significant piece of suggestion, a piece of recommendation, list of recommendations, about 60, to be able to try and improve what we thought was certainly, or everybody thought was a priority for the country, which is good governance. 4 of those 60 recommendations at the time related to the manner with which the country spends our money, therefore our taxes. And it became apparent that there were areas that needed improvement, that people knew that improvement could have happened, some low-hanging fruit and some more complex matters, but didn't happen yet. And therefore we thought it fit to come together with serious thought and proposals on how to better improve not only the reassurance of the taxpayer that their money is being spent well, but also the tenderers themselves, contractors, service providers, whoever, that put a proposal to government in any specific tender, to be reassured that they're being treated fairly. This at a time when we are currently experiencing, and probably going to experience even more in the next couple of years, a serious amount of government spending. Because clearly this pandemic has shocked us all in many ways, not just the health areas, not only in the health aspect, but also in the economic aspect. And certainly one way of getting out of this difficulty that we will all find ourselves in, the whole world but Malta too, would be to spend public funds into projects, not necessarily infrastructure, but many other projects, hopefully in the areas of digitalization, in education, and so on and so forth. And because so much more money will be spent than what we have been used to, then the timing of these proposals and ensuring that we make best value of our money is so right, is so correct.
So I want to mention 2 proposals that I saw from this document. So first, you say that the deadline for when a tender should be granted should be slashed from 90 days, for 3 months, to 1 month, and for the smaller tenders at least, not the large ones, and that twice a year the government should publish a list of the tenders it plans to issue in the second half of the year. So can you explain these, please?
Yeah, so clearly anyone providing a service, so let's put it this way, if I was the government and I was about to spend my money and I wanted to really make sure that I get value for my money, I want to have a primed, if that's the right term, a primed audience, a primed pool of tenderers. And therefore, in respect of your second suggestion, being able to inform 6 months in advance, inform the pool of potential resources that I'm about to be needing this, that, and the other, would prime as many tenderers as possible in good time to be able to give me an offer which would compete against each other and therefore give me truly what would be best value for my money. So actually,
the issue sometimes there are things you can't plan 6 months in advance. There are urgent issues.
Oh yes, okay. Apart from those, there's you can't do much about something you need tomorrow, and you procure that or you buy that. But most of the major buys are buys that we can anticipate in good amount of time, and rather than dream of the need, issue a tender and expect everybody to give you a response within a month, when some of these tenders are quite complex actually, not only large but sometimes complex. That will be unfair on the tenderers themselves and certainly unfair on us spending the money. So clearly, therefore, doing this preparatory work to get the best audience and the best interest, the most competitive interest in anything that I as a country or we as a country need when we spend our money is very good practice. I would dare say that in the private sector, this is what we would want anyway. This is what we would do anyway. If we're buying anything for this office, if you're buying furniture for this office and you really want the best deal, you will find that you will get very bad deals if you decide now and want the furniture tomorrow, but rather if you are able to plan this 6 months in advance and tell all the furniture providers that you really want so much furniture, come 6 months from now, I'm sure you'll get as wide an array of interest as possible and certainly your best deal. That's very for money.
Do you think there's an issue with a culture of us as a government always going for the cheaper option rather than the best option?
Yeah. Okay, this is another problem. Yes, cheap rather than value for money. Now, when we spend our own money, of course, even if we're on a budget, okay, in our personal lives, we will, yes, try to spend as least as possible, but in our minds, we're always thinking of value for money. We're always thinking of what do I really get for the money that I'm spending? And sometimes we do make decisions where we actually spend more than the cheapest because we get so much more value. In our country, because of course the manner with which tenders are written, and even worse so the way that tenders are adjudicated at the end, we tend to play very safe. And the safest way to adjudicate tenders would be by simply looking at the price and going for the cheapest. And that is very dangerous. As I explained earlier. So we're of course trying to motivate better knowledge of the product or the service that is required, to be able to define that well, and even more importantly, having a set of people that form part of an adjudicating panel that are entrusted, if you like. I know this is going to be a difficult one when you trust, but entrusted with the ability to choose best value for money. And that can only be brought about by having very clear criteria of what quality is required, and of course then the price is attached to that, so that the cost-benefit analysis, if you like, of a decision, and therefore the value for money proposition, can actually be achieved.
What about the procurement officers themselves? Do you think there's a risk that they aren't as independent as they'd like to be because they keep getting overruled by people above them who might want to give specific tenders to their friends?
So clearly these are the issues, the underlying concerns we all have. It's said in a relaxed, these matters are discussed in relaxed fashions when people are drinking a glass of wine. In a relaxed fashion you get these doubts. And this is one of those reasons why, rather than have all these cloudy doubts or cloudy concerns about whether he knows that, or a tender was written for that particular tenderer, or this guy was related to another member, or was maybe pushed by, or motivated, or driven, or supported by a particular individual in politics or whatever, that all needs to go. And that can only be gone if the people that are employed in the choice of the products and the services, and therefore in the tendering process, are right and proper people. Certainly we need people who are technically savvy and therefore technically prepared to be able to understand what they are reading, and then all the processes that would reassure us that anybody, as I said, simply over a glass of wine, having a simple chat and saying, do I trust the procurement process to give me the reassurance that value has been driven out of my money as a taxpayer? And if the answer is yes, because the systems are in place, they are very transparent and very, very visible to everybody, then we stand the chance of being reassured. If we don't, then we will always be doubtful. Sometimes we prove bad practices. Some of these are very visible in the press, of course, certainly covered by yourselves here at Lovin Malta. Others are just speculated, and it's a gut feel we get that things might not be right. In order to remove that, the best thing to do is to up the level of the current procurement process and reassure everybody that what is being done in the right manner. When I talk about procurement and public funds, I do not only refer to the Department of Contracts. About 440 million a year is being spent by the Department of Contracts, but there are other Schedule 3 organizations in the country, typically the Malta Industrial Parks, CPSU, the health authorities that buy our medicines, the Infrastructure Malta, the organization that is building our infrastructure, our roads and harbors and so on. These are all institutions that procure, therefore make use of our own money in a very, very important role. So we need to make sure that the way these organizations are structured and deliver their procurement processes are to the highest of standards that give us the confidence that everything is above board and everything is clean and transparent.
In terms of high standards, do you think that companies who either don't pay their taxes or pay them too late or who don't publish their accounts should be barred from the public procurement process?
Yes, we have been very clear here. We made the declaration, it's clearly here on this document, that speaks about blacklisting of tenders, contractors, service providers that are aiming to sell their product or their service using public funds, at the same time maybe not settling their bills into the public coffers like taxes, VAT, licenses and so on. And I think in the interest of good governance, in the interest of the best way we use public money, and also in the interest of the business itself, the fair level playing field, then these tenders should be blacklisted and should be put to the side before they get their act in order. We cannot afford to have well-meaning, qualitative businesses that are paying their taxes, paying their VAT on time, paying their NI, paying their licenses on time. Of course, at some serious cash flow consequences when you do that, but that is the way the law is, and that's what we need to respect. And these well-meaning businesses need to compete with others that are, of course, taking a swifter route. That is not fair, and that needs to be completely abolished. Government's responsibility should be to be able to connect information within the GDPR rules, of course, whereby any tenderer is able to be cleared on having been truly correct in the way it has been handling its own finances with government before it attempts or is considered to provide the service through a tender.
Absolutely. Just moving on a bit. So yesterday there was a bit of controversy when it was revealed that Eurostat said that retail sales in December 2020 were better than they were in December 2019, despite COVID-19. The Chamber of SMEs is saying this is absolutely not true. What's your position on this?
No, certainly, the sales, first of all, the type of retail has changed dramatically. Clearly, the fact that we are not very much in the public realm, we're very much at home, the type of clothing that we wear, the type of apparel that we need, the upgrades to our houses that we conducted last year, certainly is a shift of 2020 to 2019. Money has been spent. Certainly those that have shifted to online sales of products or services have have improved their sales. Some of them actually are up from 2019, so I'm not surprised. Others, of course, are down. So certainly there are segmental differences. IT, home improvement, homeware, these are things, and home decoration, garden apparel. These are all things that have certainly increased from a procurement point of view, especially online sales. The non-online sales and those other areas that have become relatively unnecessary in a COVID world have, of course, suffered. So really and truly the future of retail relates to the need to be connected with the true needs of the customers in a COVID environment. I don't think this way of conducting ourselves, this way of relating to each other is going to go away anytime soon. So the retailer's ability to be able to address these new needs in a contactless environment is probably what would save retail. On the other hand, spending power and confidence by the customers themselves is very important to retain these numbers. We'll have to see how this is going to pan out in the next couple of months.
But it's possible, though. They actually did better in December than they did the previous year, though.
Yeah, there were businesses that did better in December than they did last year.
As a sector in whole, they did better, though.
No. As a sector, it couldn't have been better. As a sector in general, retail, I mean to say. There are sectors within the sector that did better, others that did worse. In general, on average...
So the statistics are wrong, then?
To be honest, I don't know what are the basis of the statistics, because maybe their way of measuring was very subsectorial, if you get what I mean, which probably would justify the reasons why Eurostat came to that conclusion. The general feel is that retail in general is down by anything between 50 to 60% from the previous year. So I can't imagine that an average is actually better than the year before.
To address this, opposition leader Bernard Grech recently proposed that the government should issue new incentives for people to buy furniture and other pricey items at bargain prices. Do you agree with this?
Yes, I think there could be value there. Certainly with an environment where we're moving towards a zero carbon economy, there's also moves, which I think we should incentivize, moves for people to purchase second-hand items, including furniture, second-hand furniture, second-hand clothing, second-hand apparel, second-hand whatever. Because there is always a life that goes beyond the end of life in one particular household to another. So I think the way we can restructure our circular economy and move away from spending our money, or maybe even through incentives using vouchers, to spend it solely on food or solely on specific retail apparel such as clothing, is rather limiting. I think the real needs of people today are even more basic than that, and furniture could be one of them. So I can see the reason and the value for that suggestion.
So basically vouchers for people to buy furniture and even food, you said?
Yeah, at the moment that's how. At the moment it's food, it's restaurants, and wear generally. But I think the need to move into the support of retail, which is much more widespread than these two sectors, I think is important. And furniture is one of them. Why not? Certainly, the need for us to re-engineer our houses, because our houses are no longer that place where you sleep, entertain yourself, and eat. Today, they've become living offices, living communication locations. I mean, the need for rehashing, rebranding of our furniture, the way we use our space efficiently, has become a very important part of the change that we have experienced last year. So if that is a true change, and I don't think that's going to go anytime soon again, probably that is going to shape our future, then yes, why not? Why not consider that?
Vouchers.
Well, vouchers is one way of incentivizing consumption, which is local. I would dare say that I would also possibly consider, again within a zero carbon mindset, to consider furniture or whatever apparel that we're talking about that is produced locally, because that is good for our own circular economy and our own carbon footprint, or at least equipment and furniture and the items that are procured from a closer range. Yes? I mean, buying anything which is cheap but it's coming from the other side of the world clearly has a very huge carbon footprint, and these are the things that we need to start thinking about. And as we shape our economy moving forward, it's something that we, as a Chamber of Commerce, constantly talk about, then we need to be driven by the right values. and climate change action driving a zero carbon economy is, I think, the underlying principle that would enable us to emerge better eventually, not anytime soon, but emerge better than where we were even in 2019 and before that.
Wow, very interesting. And finally, there's a debate going on at the moment as well about the future of broadcasting. Mm-hmm. Do you think that, what do you think about the status of political party stations? Do you think that they should be allowed to continue or to change their operations?
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a question I'm not very competent in answering, but I'll give you my 2 pennies worth of opinion. Certainly communication is very important. Having journalists such as yourselves and your colleagues here who express their mind and do this objectively without being constrained with any agenda is very important for this country. I think we have discovered the importance of that. Using the power of incumbency, if you like, even attracting funds through advertising and all, needs to be looked at rather importantly to ensure that we have a streamlined, coordinated, but professional, very professional. I think this is really important. You guys have a lot of responsibility in this area. I mean, I say you guys, I mean the journalists, all the journalists in the country, to make sure that the right messages are being passed on without stretching the conversation a bit too far and therefore attracting unwanted emotions to any subject other than the truth. Mm-hmm. I think this is very important.
Mm-hmm. So obviously the party media stations at the moment don't do this.
They do this less, certainly, and it is something that I think we in general, the public, advertisers, organizations such as ours, should really do our very best to be able to correct the extreme communication positioning that some of these party station journalists take because of the agenda that they take. Clearly, their agendas are known, so actually when we hear these stations, we would know why they're going there. The worst that can happen is, of course, when that agenda is not known and that stretching happens anyway. So I think it is very important for journalists to be truly professional and true to the profession that they would have chosen, and therefore true to the commitment that they have to the public in expressing the truth and nothing but the truth.
Mm-hmm. And also the risk, obviously, of parties owing businesses a lot of money, and then those businesses owing the money to the station, the businesses compromising them.
Certainly that is a risk that needs to be managed, and I think our laws needs to be developed in such a way to reassure that the media, advertising, and therefore, as I said, the power of incumbency are curbed to a limit that does not limit the consumer, after all, the consumer of information, ourselves, from the truth.
David Xuereb, thank you very much. That's all from us for today. Make sure to follow lovinmalta.com for all the latest updates on what's going on in this country. And until then, have a day full of lovin'.